Huh?
Draymond Green shot.
Yeah, always. Always full comments on the Draymond Green show.
How's your eye feeling?
No, it's all right. It's swollen. But, I mean, it's fine. It's not very painful. More so than less functional.
How much, if at all, is like your vision impacted by your swollen eye or anything like that?
A little bit. It's a little blurry. But it's getting better every day. So it's all right. Yeah, it'll be fine tomorrow.
How much did it impact you in game 2?
I just didn't play well. But I mean, it's, I'm not one to make excuses. I just didn't play well. It's all good.
You guys allowed 106 points on like 39% shooting. Normally that's, really good defense. What do you have to do to get the offense to the standard that you're used to?
I think the defense was, even in saying that, and we lost the game, I think the defense was just fine. There are some things down the stretch that I think we could have did a better job of, but overall, I think it was pretty good. Offense, I think we just have to, we have to be more of ourselves. I think we were a little out of character in game 2. Forced a lot of shots, forced a lot of passes. Like I said, in between shot turnovers and turnovers, we probably had 30-some turnovers. And so when you look at it from that, through that lens and you say, all right, there's some stuff that we can clean up. But if we just clean up that, we should be just fine. And I think our offense has been our defense's biggest problem. You look at the transition opportunities that they're getting off of bad shots and turnovers, and they shot 39%. So you cut those in half. What are they, 35%? And everybody's going crazy about how great the defense has been. So I think that our offense will help our defense more than anything else we'll do on the defensive end.
Draymond, you're over here. The small lineup. I mean, you, Wiggins, and Jordan, Steph, Clay was so good against the Nuggets. Game 2 of this series, I think you were outscored by 11 in like 10 or 11 minutes. I mean, is it some of the issues you're talking about? What's different, and can that lineup work against this team? Steve was saying it's a different matchup, obviously, than it was against Denver, but I'm curious your view of that.
Yeah, I mean, every series is going to be a different matchup. I think it can work. But like I said, it has to – what you're worried about is the defensive end and the rebounding. And like I said, what killed us is the offensive end. So I trust that group can get it together offensively.
Draymond, up here. There's been so much focus on Jordan's offense throughout the postseason so far, but how important, particularly with Gary out, will Jordan's defense be the rest of the way for you? And what's your expectation if there are occasions he's asked to guard Ja?
I think, what you expect is him to do what it takes to help us on the defensive end. If he's asked to do that, you have to take on that challenge. That's a part of growing up in this league. That's a part of becoming someone, is you have to take on a challenge in front of you. And so if he's asked to do that, he got to sit down in defensive stands and guard. And but regardless if he's asked to guard Ja or not, you have to sit down in the playoffs. You got to guard. And so that's something that's going to be required of him and that he has to do in order for this team to be successful. And he's more than capable of doing it.
Draymond, you guys had a couple of days since the last game. And when you think about GP, when you think about you, do those things subside, or does this time off make
No, they
you-
don't subside. This is a playoff series. They don't subside until the series is over.
But my point is, do you guys have to be careful not to let those emotions?
Nah, you want every bit of emotions you can have in a playoff series. Somebody won't smoke, you gotta won't smoke, or you lose. So, nah, this ain't about putting no emotions aside or not letting your emotions get the best of you. If your emotions get the best of you, they should. It's the playoffs. You're playing for all the marbles. Your emotions should get the best of you, and you adjust from there.
One more lineup question over here, Draymond. With Adams potentially coming back for Memphis, how difficult will that make it for the small lineup, or just in general? I mean, they're a pretty good rebounding team anyway, and to add him to the mix, how does that?
I think, if that's what they're going to do, that's great. Whatever our game plan is going to be, I don't think that game plan should change at all. They got to adjust to us too. You know, if they're crashing the boards and he's crashing to get offensive rebounds, and we do get the rebound and we push, it's going to be hard to keep up. So every lineup for us has its positives and has its negatives, and vice versa. You know, they may go in saying, "Oh, this is a positive for it," where there's a negative on the other side, and if we can take advantage of that, then that's great for us.
Draymond, what's it been like navigating these playoffs without Andre? I believe this is the first time you've been in the playoffs and he hasn't been there. Where do you miss him? What's it been like?
I was in my rookie year against him.
That's right.
But it's been different. You know, that's someone you can always turn to settle things down. That's, you know, obviously we know what he brings on the defensive end. But like I said, the offensive end as well. And just his smarts and his experience and the skill that he brings to the game. That's definitely missed. And, you know, you're replacing that with, you know, 17 years of experience. You're replacing that with a half a year of experience, with 2 years of experience. That's just a totally different look. Now, in saying that, you have to make the adjustment, and I think we're doing a decent job of making the adjustment, but it's hard. You know, that's a guy who, you know, when he came back here, you're not really looking at it like, oh man, Andre's going to come back and he's going to play a bunch of regular season games and a bunch of regular season minutes, and it's going to be great. Like, you're not looking at it that way. You're looking at it like, all right, we bring Andre back. Everybody's happy about it, and we know when the playoffs roll around, you can turn to him and he's going to provide whatever it is that we need. And so to not have that, it's you know, that's a huge loss. And you know, it's one that we're trying to overcome, but it's difficult. He brings a lot to this team.
Can you hope? Do you look at it as hoping that you're going to get him at some point, or do you have to put that aside and say, we're taking the approach that if we get him, great, but we got to figure this out, not assuming he's going to be there at some point?
Oh yeah, I don't think anybody's assuming he's coming back. If he comes back, great. You know, that'd be fantastic. But I don't think anybody's walking around every day like, when we get Andre back, X, Y, and Z is going to happen, because, you know, you just can't wait on that. Like, you have to move forward. You can't move forward like, oh man, when we get GP back, like, you just don't know. And so, you know, if you say, oh man, this guy may be back in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, well, you know, if we go to Game 7 of the NBA Finals, what's that, a month and 5.5 weeks away? So if a guy's supposed to be back in 3 weeks and he suffers one setback, then that's kind of those 5 weeks gone. So you kind of just have to approach it with that attitude. Like, those guys aren't coming back, and if they do, great. That's a huge bonus for us. But you got to move forward with the expectation that they won't be with us.
Thanks.
You just talked about Jordan and just the defensive mentality. And I know over the years that you have kind of brought guys under your wing defensively. I remember D'Angelo Russell, was like, he can be a good defender. How do you, with younger guys, try to help develop that defensive mentality, you know, or take them under your wing and show them like, yo, this is how you have to?
I think number one is first off, is showing the importance of defense. And secondly, you know, you want to go to battle with a guy that's going to compete. So you relay that, you push that, you make that understood. Like, let guys know I'm not expecting you to be Marcus Smart. I'm not expecting you to be Drew Holiday. Just expecting you to compete on that end. One thing I always like to tell guys, if you just compete on that end, if you turn a guy one time, if you make a guy take one extra move or, a split second longer, help can come. And we all need help on the defensive end at one point or another. And so if you compete and you make that guy make one extra move, your help will be there. But if you don't compete and you give up straight line drives, no one can help that. Like, it's impossible to help that. And so I think it's, more so just kind of forcing guys to understand how important it is to the game. And, if you're going to win, you got to stop the other team because everybody in this league can score.
Draymond, you talked about the emotions in the wake of the first two games. What's the hardest foul you've ever been on the receiving end of, and how did you manage your emotions and respond in the wake of that?
I don't remember. I'm sure I've been on the receiving end of some hard fouls before, but just keep it pushing. You don't let it throw you off your square. Just got to keep going. It's a basketball game. It's a physical game. Whatever comes with that, you take that on the chin and keep it moving.
Hardest foul was probably from Michigan.
Hardest foul from Saginaw, Michigan. Yeah, I did get fouled hard growing up in Saginaw, Michigan. Not sure what other Michigan you're talking about, but if you're talking about Saginaw, Michigan, I did get fouled a lot. Growing up there, I played with the old heads. I used to get hit in the head with the basketball and everything. So you're right. That that bred me a little differently. Shout out to Saginaw.
There you go, free advertising. But when you look at the film over the past couple of games, Ja's been the guy that's beating you on that end of the floor. Is that comforting to you that you look at it and say, if we make this one change on this one play or we, match it up a little bit differently, we can contain this team compared to maybe it being 3 or 4 guys beating you offensively?
Yeah, I mean, when you're in the playoffs, you can't let other guys beat you. Zaire Williams had 15 points or something like that. Like, you can't allow that to happen. Like, if you shut him down like you should, then, you give yourself a much better chance at winning the game. And so, I mean, the reality is Ja's a superstar. Been saying that for a couple of years. He's a superstar or will be a superstar. But he has superstar-like ability. I'll say it like that. He may not be a superstar yet because of all the things that come with that, but he has superstar-like ability. And when guys have superstar-like ability, you're not locking those guys down. Last series, I played great defense on Joker. I didn't lock him down. Like, you're not locking those guys down. Number one, they're going to have the ball way too much for you to just completely lock a guy down. And so, knowing and understanding that you're not going to lock those types of guys down. Steph struggled last game, right? He finished with 25. Right. I mean, you're just not going to erase guys like that. And so if you're not going to erase guys like that, then you do have to erase the guys that you can erase. And, that's important, I think, in any series. You don't, you look at the Dallas series, the Dallas and Phoenix series. Like, you have to take the guy. Luka, he finished that last game with 37 or something like that. But you have to stop the guys that you can stop because you're probably not going to stop that guy. And so I think we can do a better job there. Yeah, we can do a better job on some of the things that Ja is doing. But like I said, for the most part, a guy like that's going to get his. You have to stop everyone else when you can.
Hey, Dre, obviously you never want to miss the playoffs, but after 5 straight NBA Finals appearances, I can imagine, or can't even imagine what the exhaustion is like, both mentally and physically. Would you guys have been able to be playing the way you guys are now, having the season you guys had, if you guys hadn't had a break from that type of intensity?
I like to think so. Just as a competitor, you like to always think I can keep it going. But I mean, in saying that, I don't think that little 2-year break hurt anyone. It definitely didn't hurt me. It allows you to regain that hunger. It allows you to kind of get back in a routine of preparing yourself to get better and not just preparing yourself to roll into the next season after a small break. In taking all of those things into account, I think it definitely helped us. You're going through those 2 years and you don't see that. You don't feel like, oh man, well, these 2 years, because you can't be so certain that you're ever going to get back to that level. Now, we always believe we would get back to that level, but you can never be too sure. And so I think for us, while going through it, I feel like the world is collapsing. You play basketball to get to these moments, to play in the playoffs, to possibly win a championship. And when you don't have that opportunity, like, you're not thinking like, oh man, this is priming us for this. You're like, what do I have to do to get back there? And so in hindsight, it probably was a good recovery for us. But while you're going through it, you're miserable. At least I'm miserable. I don't think that's for everybody. I don't think everybody in this league really wants to win. That's not really a thing that I believe. Like, I don't believe everybody in the league want to win. But as someone who loves to win, and even more so than that, absolutely hates losing, is miserable going through it.
Draymond, you said earlier you have to be more like yourselves on offense. When you reviewed the video the other night, was it mostly shot selection, or what was different about game 2 versus the way you play?
I think our shot selection was big. Like, we have to find better shots. We have to take advantage of the things that they're giving us and within the flow of our offense, and not try to force what we want to happen. You got to take what the defense gives you. And, if you settle down and, you can fill that out, but if everything's just bad out of hell, then, you're meeting force with force, which is good sometimes, but that's not always great on the offensive end, and so we just got to, move the ball, make the extra pass like we normally do. That's debilitating for a team when you got an open shot and you pass up an open shot for an even better one and knock a 3 down. And so I think, that's what's been a staple of this offense for years, and we have to get back to that.
Dre, just as a quick follow to that, when you say you don't think everybody in this league wants to win, like, what does winning take out of you? Like, what does it take?
They give you a lot of gray hairs at 32. It's pretty stressful, but it's mentally, physically, and most of all, emotionally draining, taxing. Because it requires a level of focus. It requires a level of sacrifice that is stressful. You kind of just fully immerse yourself into this, almost like into this trance, and just like everything is like that. Basketball all day, every day. How can I get better with this? What am I putting in my body that's going to help me tomorrow? Can't eat this thing, can't eat that thing, can't drink this thing. It requires a level of sacrifice in order to put yourself in the best position to do that. And that's stressful, and so for a guy making $35 million a year and never has to win, why stress yourself out that way? It's what a loser thinks. And I just don't think that way. But a lot of guys around this league do. And that's okay. I don't knock anyone for how they feel or what they think. Like, whatever their reasoning is for feeling that way is totally fine with me. That don't have absolutely nothing to do with me. It doesn't affect me in one way or another. It doesn't at all. It just doesn't work for me.
Because you've done it for a while, you become more acclimated to it? Or does it become harder as you get older because the margin becomes narrower?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? Like I think it's a mixture of it does get a little harder because your preparation is different, right? Like your preparation is much more to get yourself to that moment and going and like revving how you want to. Your preparation has to be a little bit different. The things around you are different. You know, when I was 25 years old in the finals, I wasn't married with 3 kids and, you know, trying to be an incredible husband. That's a totally different thing. Like trying to be an incredible father, that's a totally different thing. And so that also adds to it, you know, like there's just so many other things that as you get older that you have to deal with. Now, in saying that, your expectation and your know-how is there. And so that kind of lessens the burden. So, you know, I think it's give or take. Like some things it's a little tougher. Some things it's a lot easier, but ultimately I feel like it balances itself out and it's still hard as hell to accomplish and to stay in that space that you need to stay in order to accomplish what the ultimate goal is and winning the championship. You know, you add in the stress of not having something to prove per se and already being a 3-time champion and knowing if you never win again, you won 3 championships. And that's nearly impossible to do. On the flip side of that, you have the stress of like, I always want that feeling again. Like it's such an incredible feeling to win a championship. How do I get that feeling back? And so you have that stress. And so it's kind of this like teeter-totter thing of like some things, you know, it's maybe a little less on you and you kind of just got that part figured out. And then something is revved up way more than it used to be. And so ultimately, I think you end up in the same place. I'm sitting in these playoffs and I realize once again how hard it is to truly, like how hard it is to win a championship.
You ever think of doing a podcast? That's pretty good.
The Draymond Green Show, you should subscribe.
Good. Cool.
No, thank you. No, thank you. I appreciate it, Kendra.